Josh Simmons. So our first pick with 32, we get Josh Simmons in this amazing. We didn't think it was going to happen, but it happened. JD Teja, what were your guys' grades on Josh Simmons?
For me, um, once I started watching this guy, just talking about his ability, what he was able to do, also to the value that he brings to the team. And so we understand that Jalen Moore had came here. We got him on a 2-year contract, which was great. The thing is, we wanted to make sure we had somebody for the future. So the 2-year contract is only going to give you that. So if the guy doesn't work out, then what happens? And I'm saying he's not. I think Jalen Moore is a very capable left tackle. Okay, and that's the reason we went and got him. He did a great job when he was out there at San Fran. But what we've seen in this draft was a talent of a Josh Simmons. It was one thing I just felt we just couldn't pass up. We just couldn't. Just his athletic ability, his type of power that he has, him able to get up the field. We kind of talked about it a little bit later, but also too, man, when I told you about how his pass set, how silky smooth he was out in space, going up to the next level, like tracking down linebackers. To me, man, it just made sense to have a guy like this. Now, of course, he got pushed back because of his knee. And Pono, I want you to watch this because Pono was sitting there saying he wasn't really too thrilled about Josh Simmons. But Pono, check it out now, okay? Just kind of watch it. You just have to listen. Josh Simmons arguably was probably one of the best tackles in the past couple of years. And so they were talking about this. They were talking about this guy. And it just was a setback of his knee. And I'm so happy that he felt was. I told that to somebody on Twitter today. But I believe that the Chiefs did a great evaluation, especially to see what his knee was at. This guy would have been a top 10 pick. Easy, if he hadn't gotten hurt. He falls to us. We get him. We pick him up. Our value that we have in him, he can play both left and right, but he's going to be left tackle for us in the future for the next foreseeable future. That's what we like. I like this. That value, I think, is an A, Marcus. That's my grade for him.
It's a pretty easy A. I can't give it any other grade. It's funny. I heard someone say he graded a B, but an incomplete because he didn't play enough. But it's like they're all incomplete. Like even if they played the entire season, it's incomplete. You don't know how they're going to play in the NFL. So it's all that's a ridiculous thing to say. You're really grading all of this on potential, right? So potentially it's an A. Anytime you can say this guy would have been a top 5 pick if not for blank. I mean, to get that same guy at 32 is just it's a great pick. It's the only pick to make, really. I mean, it was very. That's why every single mock draft when they mocked him to us, it was saying, crazy the draft's going to break this way. That they'll get a guy that they've been looking for the past however many years, just because of circumstance, because other teams can't afford to do this, right? Like teams need a guy to start right now. And they don't have the time or the setup to wait. And I think we were just really fortunate to be in that situation to have a temporary guy at right tackle who's probably gone after next season because of a huge cap number. And then another guy who, is also, if we're going to grade incompletes, Jalen Moore is kind of incomplete. He's played 5 games. Jalen Moore is kind of like the NFL version of Simmons, but didn't look dominant. So, I mean, think of it that way. They both played almost the same amount of games last season, started the same amount of games last year, except one, killed it and one filled in adequately. He looked good. He looked good enough, right? But in the league, good enough is good enough to be a starter at left tackle. So I just think it worked out perfectly for us. And for this grade and all the grades, I'm going to grade it as far as where we drafted him, where he went, potential, and I think filling our need. And I think it nails all of those, right? So you have to just give it an
A. Yeah, I want to address some of the comments I think that Marcus was putting up there before, and I agree with you. Like you said, anytime you got somebody who was going to be a top 5 pick and it gets to us, we take him, and it had to be like there's something onto it, right? And because of this, there was a reason. I think Pono was sitting there saying that, hey, he's only one twist from hey, Jason, I get it about the doctor's approval, but the fact is that tendon is now compromised. One wrong twist and he's done. Well, that's with any football player. I'm just going to tell you that's how it works in the NFL. They felt like it was structurally sound. The doctors did their due diligence to make sure that what they felt like he was ahead of schedule. Like Mike Brennan said, it's the same thing I kind of heard. Matter of fact, Andy said that he's ahead of the game, that you might see him during training camp for sure. He could probably play before then. And so they said because of the patella tendon, the injury uses about 6 months as opposed to the difference between the ACL. He's able, man, that he's done everything he needs to do to get back on the field. But like Mike says also too, no need to rush it. We got a guy that's there. But Josh Simmons can absolutely come in by the start of the season and possibly play and be a starter. He could play. He could really, truly do that. He truly could. But when you talk about his athletic ability, I think there was no other guy for me, at least in this draft, that was like really, when I'm telling you, NFL ready. That's what I meant. A lot of it had to do with his pass sets. A lot of it was him moving up to the second level. A lot had to do with his ability to take on, like meshing with his guard double teams and moving on up. He just seems so seamless of a guy that you just plug and play immediately right now. And it was like that whole caveat, like you said, Tej, if it wasn't for this, and that's the only thing. That's the only thing. But as far as how they felt, they went through the full evaluation. So it ain't just me. It's the Chiefs that's made this decision to put a whole lot of money into this guy. And I think another thing that somebody said, I think Now said this, is why not wait for another year? So if Simmons stay for another year at OSU, he could have been top 5 next year. With NIL and top 5 guaranteed money next year, why not stay for one more? Well, because he already had one injury. There was no need to do that. And NIL money is nothing compared to NFL money. And so if a guy has an ability to go up there to the NFL and go play, and he was a first-round pick, there's no need to stay another year to do that. You just can't compare money for one. Number two, your dream is not to play in college and just earn a little bit of money. Yours is to go play in the NFL, the highest possible experience that you could do as a football player. That's it. That's the Mecca. That's the elite. And he wants to go up there and go against those guys. So that's the reason. You don't want to, he's already had one injury. There's no sense doing that. Go on up there to the highest level. He wants to go compete against those guys. And so that makes a whole lot of sense just to do that. So no, don't waste a year. What do you think, Tej?
I agree. I think it. You could make an argument that it shows confidence in his ability either way. If he thinks he can go back to school and just come back and be a top 5 pick next year, he also shows confidence by saying, "Whatever, I'll prove it in an NFL contract." So you can make an argument either way for that one. Really, I like that because the quicker he gets through it now, the quicker he gets to his next contract. A really good left tackle is going to get pretty much contracts till they're in like their early mid-30s, if they can last that long. I'm not so many of these guys have had injuries. We just didn't know about them because they weren't recent and during the draft. But there are a lot of guys with torn ACLs, torn MCLs, like a lot of guys with injuries in this draft that, we didn't have any problem drafting at all. We wouldn't have a problem. I would have drafted other guys later on if they were available. I don't mind that. I like the discount. I think the discount's great. If you're telling me we get a top 5 player because he might not be totally healthy to start the season, even if they say he is, but even if he isn't, we've already prepared for that. We signed more accordingly, and we have one more year with Taylor. So, like I said before, he just worked out so perfectly. If you do have to sit him for a year, we're built for that already. And we're not, and if Taylor or Moore have problems, then we have one of the more fortunate situations to have that you can be in, right, for a team to have 3 capable tackles ready to play right now.
And I think the crazy thing is too, right? Like it seemed like the injury wasn't the reason why teams are passing on him, right? They talked about the immaturity that he has. In fact, the fact that the doctors, everyone said he should be ready by training camp, and we don't need to rush him by any means. But if he's ready, he'll play. But like the immaturity is the reason why he lasts this long. And for a team, and you guys, we talked about this before, the last like 2 drafts, we would get to the end of the first round, and literally every offensive tackle was gone. Like to take an offensive tackle at 32 or 31, wherever we were picking, it was going to be a reach. So we weren't even doing that. So like we traded a late first to get Orlando Brown because we knew there was going to be no first round tackles at our spot. And the fact that everything kind of stars aligned perfectly where he was able to be there at this spot, just wild. I mean, like, yeah, hit or miss. Some mock drafts had us getting him. Some mock drafts, Josh Simmons was going in the top 15 or top 20. We weren't getting him. So, like, the fact that we were able to get him, and not only he was there 31, we were able to recoup a fifth-round pick in the process while getting him, too, I think adds to that. And, yeah, I'm right there with you guys. A+ for me, I think. And now, too, right, if the injury is healing as all the doctors indicate and all the sources before the draft said, like, we're talking about a franchise left tackle because this is a top 10 guy. This is what people talk about, a franchise left tackle. This is it. To get him at 32 and to not worry about this position for the next 10 years, that's a godsend. That's amazing.
Tackle one.
Yeah.
Tackle one. It's the only way you're going to get tackle one in a draft because we're not trading 6 first rounders to move up to the top 5. So this is it.
And that's really, it. And to me, it's like, my question was, definitely the injury. It was never his ability. As far as ability-wise, I think he was head and shoulders above everybody else. So the other guys like Connerly and those guys, to me, it was I was more concerned about them just ability-wise playing on this level from day one than I was with him. His was all about the knee, period. That's it. And Amber Brown asked this question, at what point in the process did the NFL and the team's doctors evaluate a draft pick? So I'll tell you this is how it works. When you go to teams on this evaluation for the 30 or whatever, they poke and prod you to death. And I'm telling you, like I had a torn meniscus in college, and they knew all about it. So like they go through all of it. Heck, if you scraped your knee in 5th grade, they're gonna know. Okay, all right, that's how it works. But they come in and they pull, they tug, they twist. They throw it through every single test that they possibly can without trying to, without hurting you to at least your comfort level, right? And sometimes I had to tell teams like, hey, man, like, hey, yo, like that's enough. That's too much. But they're checking. I'm telling you, that evaluation, man, is they're going to do extensively the evaluation on a guy. And they want to see how the knee, how it responds. So if there's any other swelling or you walking up limping and stuff like that, that's a problem. Matter of fact, that there's been teams that players have actually, I think, went after to, almost sue, like litigation about like, man, look, you pulled on my knee a little bit too much, and you didn't have to do that. So I'm telling you, man, they do sometimes a little bit too much, Amber Brown. But if they've done that, and they poked and prodded and pulled and did everything they possibly need to do and talked to every doctor that they needed to talk about. And Andy had another guy, Brandon Graham, that was up in Philly who went through this exact same thing, who still played at a high level. They knew, okay, and they were happy with it. They were fine and said, okay, we're going to go with this guy. So.
Yeah.
What's interesting, too, is because it is a bad injury and there are some pretty bad stats around guys playing afterwards, but that's a little skewed because what are we talking about? Like a 5th-year player doing that happening to him? I mean, the NFL just doesn't really sit on injured players anyway. So if you're injured and you can't play, like you're probably gone unless you're like an elite player, right? They're not going to just wait for you for that long. You're usually going to be gone, right? Yeah. But if you look at the players who have the big name guys, they're all pretty like, there are a lot of skill position and explosive necessary, like running back, linebacker, tight end, receiver, linebacker, cornerback. That's not the same as tackle. Like those guys need to sustain 4.4 speed, 4.3 speed to be good at their position for the most part. They need to have that explosive speed to them. You don't really need that to have a left tackle, unless you just can't play at all. But if it slows you down a step, what's that really going to mean for a left tackle? I mean, he's got an amazing technique. He's got quick feet. I mean, a knee injury is not going to, even if let's say he's 90% of what he was as far as knee goes. I don't know how much that's going to stop a left tackle from doing his job. I really don't know how much it's going to impact him.
Well, the patella definitely it will impact him, because you're starting to stop force. You're stopping a lot of power. And I think that's what they're really concerned about. And you're right, you don't need that explosion as far as like, speed wise, but as far as like pushing off and all those different things, anchor would be the concern. And that's actually a good question. Like when you say that, how of the like how it is skewed. Because sometimes some of these evaluations, they were done for a long time. They were saying 2013, 14, and 15, like getting some of this information back. But some of the guys that they saw was able to do those things, still played at a high level. So this is kind of, when you look at it, Brandon Graham, right? Brandon Graham is a guy that's going to push and tug, like you said, Tage.
Yeah.
That's somebody that he's coming off and he's pushing. This is power. That's his, and he still played at a high level. So I think as long as they let this guy heal, man, as long as they let him heal, don't have to rush it. You got a guy there, he's going to be fine. So Chase Young is an example. He disappeared out of his knee injuries. He's going to go back to normal. But Chase Young was, I think he had ACL. There was a couple things that he had that was wrong with him. This guy is young. He's 22 years old. He's young. Hopefully he heals up.
I found one. Jack Conklin, the tackle.
Okay. What did they say about him?
He tore his patella tendon. He played 100% of the snaps the following year.
Oh, shoot.
When Jimmy Graham did it, he played 15 to 16 games and had 65, 920, and 6 touchdowns. Some of the other guys, again, Cadillac Williams, he tore his other one the next year, which is, that's awful. Like, first of all, that's like, I want to cry for him. But
yeah.
That's just a total freak thing. He did 2 in 2 years. That's different, right? It's not recapturing what you were. That's another injury on top of it.
Yeah, and Chase Young ruptured his patella tendon while also tearing his ACL. Totally different recovery for that. That's too severe.
That's like blowing up your knee almost.
That's
right?
awful.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's look, everyone's different. Everybody's different, and the fact that he's already testing well and they're already saying it looks good for him to go to training camp, that's a great sign. I think I read Victor Cruz needed another surgery on it before he came back and played. So I feel like the recovery process and every milestone along the way for these guys, we're not doctors, but I feel like they're all really important, and it sounds like he's checking the boxes already. So I think if there were any cause for concern, I think if a doctor was like, he's not healing the way we want him to heal. That's not even saying he won't heal, but I feel like if a specialist told the Chiefs that, they probably wouldn't have drafted him. Even it's okay. It's not healing as fast as we'd like, but there's still a good chance he could do it. They might be like, you know what? I don't like hearing that. No, we're good. We'll figure it out. But it sounds really good off the bat. And that's just on the Chiefs. That was a report I read before we drafted him. Teams liked his medicals. They said his medicals would look good. That wasn't a reason for anything.
Yeah, the immaturity was outweighing the injury, which was interesting because
great.
He's a kid, for crying out loud. Of course, he's immature.
But that was dispelled too. I think they just kind of got rid of that. And they was like, okay, yeah, ain't no big deal. But I'll tell you what we will do. Look, I got a couple of horseshoes. I'll go out and try to find a 4-leaf clover, a couple of rabbit's foots. Okay, we're putting a lot of prayer into this. That he's going to be fine, okay? As long as we do this and take the time for him to get well, I think he's going to be all right. Yeah. And the thing is, they felt like it was a chance they needed to take on a guy like that. So that tells you a lot. That tells you a lot.
And we actually have the film of our head scout talking about Josh Simmons.
Good. Hey, I got a couple of things for you. Start you off with a Josh Simmons question. Taking the injury out of it for a second, just what he put on tape before the injury, how does he rank as a tackle prospect? Not just this year. How did you guys have him rank? Not just this year, but maybe going back a few years. Where's his standing and all that?
Yeah. So I'm going to say Josh is one of the better tackles in this draft class. I would give him, you could make your case for the best, but he's definitely in the top 3 in this draft class in terms of what he provides. The only difference maybe between him and some of the other guys is, he started 2 years, and some of these other guys, like the LSU kid, I think started more, and you can say experience and stuff like that. But Josh is physically, he is elite. I mean, he is big, he's strong, his feet jump off the tape. When you put this tape on, his set is as pretty as it looks now in terms of offensive line pass setting. He got better every year. His first year at Ohio State, he flipped to left side, and now from the right side the year prior. And I think it just took him a little time to adjust to just everything, like a new playbook, a new surrounding, a new position, essentially. It's not as easy as people think going from the right side to the left side. There is a big difference, and sometimes it just takes people a little longer. And I think that was the case with Josh. This last year, I mean, you can watch those 6 games, and it's not unfair to say he was the best tackle up to that point. It stinks he got injured, because I do think, I guess it's good for us because we got him, and that's the only way we would have gotten him, because that kid, he was a top 20 pick. So it stinks for the kid. It hurt him on his wallet and money, but things happen for a reason, and it's kind of not where you start, it's where you finish. And I think just the setup here that we have with Coach Reed and Coach Heck is going to be great for this kid. In terms of years past, I would say Josh, when he was healthy at this tape would be one of the better ones in the last few years. He kind of reminds me of Christian Darrisaw, who's done really well for the Vikings. He's got a little bit of Slater in him, who plays for the Chargers. The kid's arms are longer than I think people think. The combine measured him at 33, but his pro day was 34 and an eighth, and I think that's closer to what we kind of had. I think we had around 34 when we brought him in. So, the kid is super talented and super willing to work, and we're excited to have him where we got him.
I think the measurement thing's hilarious. I think that's 3 different measurements for the same guy. Like, how's that I keep hearing that. Like, he measured this day. That's not the 40. It's a friggin' measurement. Like, my feet are size 12, whether I get them measured on Wednesday or whether I get them measured on Sunday. Like, I don't get that.
Yeah, they was using different guys. That's what they were saying. They had a new guy that was doing the measuring, and that's why it's not consistent. That's what he was asking for, like consistency on it.
So weird.
Yeah, but I mean, but what he was saying, I mean, that right there, okay, is Ryan Nutt. That is our chief director of player personnel, college scouting. Too. Yep, he's over there in the entire thing. They did a deep dive into him, and what you heard about it was how great he was in his pass sets. Talking about his athletic, being the most athletic tackle that was out there. He said top 3. You can argue he was number 1, but he was definitely top 3. Getting somebody like this at a top 20 pick, you get him at 32. I mean, you can't beat it. He said it was unfortunate, but we was able to have it. I mean, this is their evaluation. I mean, shoot, what we gonna say on something like that? So, and they loved everything about him. So,
yeah, steal, and like he said right there, blessing and a curse, right? Sucks for the kid. He could have gotten a lot more money being a top 10 pick, but it allowed us to get him where we got him. So, solved our left tackle woes. Hi, everybody. Thanks for watching. Subscribe here to get the latest from the show. Also, be sure to check out the best clips from Chief Concerns. And if you prefer to listen to the show, subscribe and follow us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and anywhere else you get your podcasts.